right, we are live.
Welcome to another episode of Wholesale Wednesday.
So let some people join in here. In terms of the structure of this one, we're really, as you guys are watching these live videos, we're really trying to give you, full transparency and let you, or teach you how to walk away with actionable steps, right? So, Brandon and I were talking before this live. The structure is really going to be Smart Scout, source the brand, identify the brand. Why is that a brand of interest? Outreach. How do you contact them? What do you say? Right? So that's how we're going to cover this so that you guys can have an actionable list of things to do when you are, sourcing these brands and then reaching out to them. And as always, if you guys have questions, whether you're on, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, just fire away the questions. We'll answer those as they come in. So, and if you guys are watching on YouTube, just, hit the like button, helps out the videos a lot. And, let's just jump right into it here. So I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah, and so the goal of this, we're going to look through the criteria that we normally do with every brand, but the goal of this is to walk away with a brand that is, so I had a bug flying on my face. To walk away with a brand that is, fitting the criteria that we want. And, at which point we're going to talk outreach strategies, but it starts with the brand. And Smart Scout offers a number of things to do that, including, categorizing it by monthly revenue, categorizing it by the brand score, different things. So we're going to just set our filters here and look through some of that criteria.
Yep. So our basic filter parameters here, if you guys are just joining us, we're looking for 20K to 250K roughly in monthly revenue. It doesn't mean we're not going slightly outside of that range, but we're targeting small to mid-sized companies, and that's how we would define them if we had to put a number on it. Our average selling price is going to actually be a minimum of $9 because there's a sweet spot between 9 and 10, and we're looking for about we don't even need the Amazon rate in there, but we're looking for about 2 sellers on the listing minimum. We want to see FBA, and this is really our starting criteria. When we talk base level, this is the filter criteria that we're using to find these profitable brands. So we'll go ahead and hit search. Regardless of product category, we're just scrolling and looking for potential brands that we could partner with, that we can sell their products on Amazon. And when we're doing this, what we're doing is we're really just walking you through our thought process at the end of the day, because the thought process is a culmination of a lot of data-driven knowledge from contacting, thousands upon thousands of brands. So I'll just start scrolling, and, Brandon, if you see anything, just point it out.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the first thing, obviously, the brands that we recognize in most cases are going to be passes. When we talk small to mid-sized company, it doesn't mean small to mid-sized revenue. It means, can we get on the phone with a decision maker or a brand owner? So in some of these cases, Gillette, Seymour Duncan, immediately things that I'm looking at where I'm saying, no, we're not going to be able to get on the phone with a brand owner or a decision maker. So just immediately kind of ruling those out.
Right.
Books, we're going to skip. Anything in the books category.
What about something like this? Indomie?
Yeah, so let's take a look at the other statistics on Smart Scout as well. I mean, looks like it is coming up. I mean, there are some pretty good traction on some of those listings.
Yeah. I mean, we're looking at 2,000 bought, 1,000 bought here. So it's like, you pull something up like this, and again, I mean, it actually looks like this is a huge variation, and the brand is on it, of course. But one thing I just wanted to mention is that we're looking at brand names that are kind of obscure, that you're not seeing every day, right? They're not sitting around your house. They're not Procter and Gamble brands, because those are the brands that at the end of the day are going to be more inclined and open to working with you as a e-commerce Amazon seller. So we would close that out because we got the brand on there.
Amazon's also selling direct on the listing as well.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to stay away from the clothing, shoes, jewelry category just because of the returns. We tend to be cautious about selling those types of products. Why don't we take a look at what's that? Mela Health and Household? No? Yeah.
So it looks like there's some FBA sellers. Price is a little bit low below that retail level that we're looking for, but you never know, right? They have other products too that sell higher, right? And so it's like, let's just click here and see what we have going on. The first thing I'm looking at is the number of sellers that are on the listing, who those sellers are, right? Are they industry specific companies? Are they, and Amazon sellers that, sell in all kinds of categories? And quite frankly, it looks like they are Amazon sellers selling in different kinds of categories just from some of the more generic names. I mean, what else do you notice about this? I mean, I'm looking at the pictures that are terrible.
Yeah, exactly. Good reviews, good ratings, bad presence. I mean, one of the things immediately is based on the fact that it's a laundry stain remover. Seeing is it hazmat, given that it's being sold merchant fulfilled. That's a possibility as well. So definitely checking on that, because then that's going to take into account other things like shipping and cut into your profit margin and all that. Prices all over the place. I mean, one of the things too, it made me think of it when you said industry specific. One of the ways of pitching, and that we'll pitch brands and we'll talk to brands if they are industry specific, is that it's one thing to have industry specific partners selling your product. It's another thing to have, and the logic behind them doing that is because they're experts in the industry. They can provide customer service. They can do all those things. But the flip side of that being that industry specific Amazon sellers are experts in that field, and it is a totally different game. And so an industry specific store selling on Amazon is in fact not the best way to optimize their Amazon presence, because that store is probably a brick and mortar. It's probably industry specific where that's all they do. And so selling through Amazon and having someone to represent you who is an Amazon expert is another approach to take. So we're not industry specific, we're Amazon specific. And, that is a selling point.
Exactly. I was just having a conversation about that with a brand, today or yesterday, and it's like, you need to help these brands understand that there is a gap, right, and a void. And most brands think traditional distribution, right? A lot of brands will think, well, if I sell to more people, then, we make more money. Or if I need to be selling to companies that also sell other products like ours. But the reality of the situation is that Amazon is a completely different beast than traditional channels of distribution. So helping them understand that Amazon is based around search engine, right, and optimization. It's not based around what kinds of products you're selling or what kinds of stores are selling related products, right? It's got nothing to do with that. It has to do with the price and the optimization, right? And the ability for their brand to appear at the top of the page when a customer is doing a keyword search. So those are the types of things that we're helping brands understand, because at the end of the day, you have to, just bang down doors a lot of times to get, to get these points across.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So
And
you want
guys,
maybe
any
you
sort of questions on anything, just feel free to throw those in the chat and we'll answer those as we go along. And if we don't get to them, then, always, if you're watching this back on YouTube, feel free to comment and we'll get to your questions and respond.
Yeah. So why don't we jump to another brand here and just see what else we could find? Because I mean, the retail pricing, the hazmat thing that Brandon mentioned, it's like, I mean, might we reach out to them? Sure. When it's not like we're buying their products yet, but let's see if we can find and identify another one that could.
Exactly. I'm not too excited about that one. I do have a feeling it's hazmat without looking it up.
Mm-hmm.
And these are crazy volumes too. I mean, you got to remember that this is monthly revenue. Like we're in the $240,000 monthly revenue. So this isn't yearly. So 240,000 times 12. That's what the brand is doing a year. So if you're just a beginner seller, you don't need to start with brands like this. It's very possible to find very profitable brands in the 10,000 a month revenue mark, 20,000 a month revenue mark.
Right.
Question on Instagram here: How do you do business with brands and distributors that have high MOQs without that kind of budget? I mean, the answer really is you look for a brand that's within your budget, and realistically as well, you're also looking at brands for the most part have smaller MOQs than maybe a distributor. So if you're working with distributors right now, consider going brand direct, because I mean, there's brands that have $100 MOQ. There's brands that have no MOQ whatsoever. So if you reach out to enough brands, you're going to find one that fits your criteria. So I would say just keep reaching out to brands. Not all of them have MOQs and not all of them have high MOQs. As far as a budget, we recommend, if you're just starting wholesale, $5,000 to $10,000 to invest into inventory is a good starting number. If you're doing RA or OA, then obviously less, but just because wholesale is a more volume game, you need a little bit more capital to start. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. And you can start in wholesale with less than 5,000. It's just going to take a little bit longer to scale, right? You're going to have less capital to spread across different SKUs. So it's not like you can't start with less than 5K, but I mean, 5K is definitely, a healthy budget to get the ball rolling. And this is, by the way, for those that are watching us do that, like this is the process, right? It's literally just filtering and weeding out brands, right? And if you don't have a VA doing it in the beginning, we were doing all of this manually, right? Just to learn the process, familiarize ourselves. And then when you identify a potential product that may or may not be of interest, you then go into that listing and look at the other stores that are selling that product. And that right there is really the bread and butter, because you can go down the rabbit hole with storefront stalking, right? And when you identify these stores, you start to all of a sudden find more stores that are in the, sort of similar type niche sellers. And it's this never ending rabbit hole that you could just keep going down of sourcing more and more products. Right.
Yeah, why don't we scroll down a little bit, try and go into the lower monthly revenue.
As I said, we could even reduce this a little bit. Let's say, maybe.
Yeah, because obviously, big brands are big brands for a reason. You're going to know them, and they're going to be doing a lot of, higher monthly revenue. So sometimes there's a sweet spot, under 100K, where again it's monthly. So, still doing 1.2 million a year is a really serious big brand. But just from a conglomerate standpoint, you kind of know the brands less, and they're more willing to reach out to you. They're smaller in terms of their structure.
Mhm.
You ever played pickleball?
No, I haven't. Have you?
Never.
It's,
I have
it's really
not. I have
it's
not.
getting
I've
really
played tennis like
popular.
twice.
Yeah, it's getting really
It
popular.
it
Again,
is.
industry specific here, so it's like scrolling through.
They're expensive.
Yeah, they are.
Which, I mean, we always talk about high MOQs. Like, there's something to be said about that. Um, we were on our way back from the beach last week, and we were looking up what the most expensive items on Amazon were because we were so curious. And most of them are crazy collectible things, but there are tons of products that are really expensive. 100, 200, 1,000, $2,000. That selling that, I mean, making a 15% profit margin on $1,000 item is a lot better than making a 15% profit margin on a $10 item, and it requires less work to prep different things. So we're always looking out for high average sale price items.
Yeah. So it's like we look at something like this, right? And I see the listing's pretty optimized,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm saying, you know what? Okay, listing looks good. Volume's decent. It's nothing crazy, but it's decent. Well, they sell to a handful of Amazon sellers, right? And this is what we talked about before, which is you don't need to close an exclusive on the first deal, right? You don't need to go for that yet. Like the best way to get into an exclusive is by getting your foot in the door and becoming a customer with the brand. The only way to do that is by start buying and selling their products. So even though this listing is optimized, this might be a brand that we reach out to just to sell their products on Amazon, right? So we don't need to strategically necessarily position ourselves if they're receptive to it. Now, of course, if they, if your inquiry is met with resistance, then, you're going to have to shift that conversation a little bit and actually show them that you're looking to provide strategic value for them. But at the end of the day, the best way to provide strategic value is when you have a ton of ammunition to pull on. Right. So if you're looking at a listing that's already well optimized, that they have a strong brand presence on Amazon, you're going to have less information to sway them into, hey, here's what we can provide for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good word, ammunition. Like, there's not a lot that you can really offer in that case, because they're so optimized already.
Here's a 269 selling price. Is this a big brand? I think I've heard of this brand before. Well, I got 5 sellers.
And again, we're looking pretty optimized here. It's
Yeah.
like nine sellers, 5 FBA. So yeah, again, it's like, would you reach out to this brand? I mean, probably. Like, it can't hurt.
Yeah. Probably just to sell the product,
Exactly. So, I mean, you don't need to get 100% of the buy box to make a profit. In fact, a lot of our products that we sell, I mean, the majority of them that make up total revenue are non-exclusive products, which is surprising to a lot of people. But you just add so many SKUs into your inventory that, a percentage here, a percentage there really adds up.
Right. And one quick, tip for anybody watching is there is always some sort of that. Like in most cases, very rarely do you find a brand that is absolutely doing every single thing right on Amazon, right? There's almost always something they could be doing better. So, even in a case like this where they do have strong images, lifestyle photography, videography, bullet points are well optimized. I don't think the A+ content is very good. There's not a whole lot of, it's a lot of white space, but it's not terrible, right? But they also do have, a bunch of competitors running ads on their listings, right, in the related product section. So, if you think you have no ammunition, chances are you need to comb through your value props a little bit more, because, this is an example of a brand. If I was met with resistance on sheerly due to the fact that it is a nice high ASP, so the juice would probably be worth the squeeze, I would, the first thing I would tell them is I would say, hey, you guys have, competitors running ads on your listing. They're capitalizing on the brand equity that you guys have built, right? So tapping into the emotion. I'll even, go off and say like the knockoffs, right? There are knockoffs on the listing here. So it's like the more, again, you got to be talking to a decision maker or an owner, but the more you can, identify with the brand and show that you actually have a vested interest in their brand, the farther you're going to get, right?
Yeah, same thing with the ads that they're running. The competitors are running against them. I mean, there's ads running on their page, so talking to them from that perspective as well.
Yeah.
And
so
that's
last time we found a pretty good grocery one. I'm hoping we could find something, that we could sort of jump into the outreach process here. Why don't we look in grocery, being that we're going to be attending a trade show here in New York.
Yeah, if anyone is going to be at the Fancy Foods show coming up this Sunday through Tuesday, so whatever that date is, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of June. If anyone wants to connect, we will be in attendance there.
Mm-hmm. This is actually interesting. This one, their listings look really good, but the friggin' product is flying, so this might be an opportunity again to sell it, right? I don't know that there's a whole lot we can do to build the brand presence because it's already there. So again, here's an example of a brand. We'd add it to the list to contact them, to carry the line. Looks like a lot of license stuff.
There's a lot going on with these. When we get out of that, why don't we look at that brand that was below it, that White Side brand? I know you said grocery, but that brand kind of caught my attention. So 400 sold in the last month. There we go. So 400 sold in the last month. Let's take a look at the sellers. There's 4. So it looks like
might be industry focused.
It could be. I mean,
you got Tool, you got Router Bit.
Yeah.
Let's see here. You got they're spread a little bit. So
I mean, it just kind of looks to me. Obviously, there's some sort of map pricing which has been violated at some point in time. This was one of 4 listings, but I mean, so right off the rip, right, things that we're looking for the fact that there's one picture. Looks like there's a glare on that as well. I mean, maybe it's because it's reflective. There is a brand store, so that does mean they have brand registry. And we scroll down, we saw the sellers, and we also want to check if there's bullet points under about this item, which there's not much of anything. And then we're also going to scroll down and take a look at the A+ content or lack thereof. And it doesn't look like there's anything. There's a product description, which, another thing that I do, and I convey this on the phone to brands, is that if they have a big product description like this, I say all of this information is great, all of it's, keyword associated, but no one is going to read it's like when you get sent a really long text message and you just look at it and you go, I'm not going to read that right now. And you go and you put it aside, right? So like, it's the same concept. I mean, if you were looking at that, I would venture to guess that almost no one has read this entire product description. But when things are easy and they're in pictures and dumb it down, for lack of a better word, and provide infographics, it's a lot more user friendly. And so we can take all this information and translate it into images and things that will not get you to skip over same information, but instead get a consumer to convert into a sale.
Right. Yep. So
Which is
this is a
awesome.
brand that we've now identified as being a potential prospect here. And what we would do is we would go to their website, we would find the phone number and call them, right? So I think now it's a good transition point to kind of transition this into outreach, right? I think we probably have a couple questions here, so let's get to those questions. But that this is a brand that we've now here identified that their listings are terrible. They do have control over their retail price. We have to recognize that, right? It looks like they got a MAP policy, but these existing sellers are not really providing any strategic advantage for the brand. They're just selling the product on Amazon, and nobody's saying that there's anything wrong with that, right? There is value in purchasing inventory, but at the end of the day, business owners and decision makers want to work with strategic partners, right? And that's the difference between what we do and what a lot of other, our competition does in just reselling products on Amazon. We're a strategic partner with the brand. And these are things that you tell the brand on the phone, right? This is how we operate our business, right? We have a vested interest in the brands we work with. We're a strategic partner. We, don't just think transactionally, right? All these different things that if they care about the direction of their brand, they're going to take these things to heart and listen to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we jump into a couple of those questions while we're transitioning to outreach? First one being, are some brands just not profitable, or are you always trying to make something work? Do you want to go into that?
So, well, we would try to make, there's many brands that are unprofitable. And I think a good starting point to answer that question is to recognize the fact that there are thousands of resellers on Amazon that sell unprofitably, right? It's just unfortunately the reality. They're leveraging to other businesses. They're using credit card points, whatever they're doing, they're just not selling at a profitable price. And you don't want to compete on price because there's no strategic advantage in a race to the bottom. So what we do in those scenarios is we assess the long-term process on something where, okay, today, maybe it's not profitable, right? But can we, at some point in the future, make that product profitable by not negotiating price concessions, because that's a value deduction for the brand. That's not a value add, right? But raise the retail price incrementally over time to make that product profitable. But in order to do that, you have to reduce the supply on Amazon. So guiding a brand through this conversation and identifying first if that is a potential brand that you could sway and convince down the line into maybe either a much more selective agreement where there's a handful of resellers and the price naturally goes up due to supply and demand, or maybe you can convert it to an exclusive down the line and make the brand profitable, right? And so in doing that, we're assessing that conversation initially. In a few weeks, I'm going to be flying out to Vegas for a brand that we placed a $15,000 PO and another $10,000 PO the last week. And there's very, very minimal profit in these orders. If you're looking at it on a transactional level, it makes no sense, right? We're just, volume's crazy, but we're really not making any money on that. And, most people 2-3 years ago, we would have said the same thing. We would have been like, why would we ever do this? Well, we're literally developing a relationship with the brand owners as we speak. So we're using the transaction to get our foot in the door in order to move the direction of profitability down the road.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I'm glad you took that one. I think you said it really well. It is really comes down to what's the long term. That's really what it is. And at the beginning, it's hard because you don't necessarily have capital to outlay cumulative $25,000 of unprofitable inventory. And we've had people, shit on us for that. But it's really just about the long term. That's really what you're looking for. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of brands are unprofitable at first. It's about making them profitable. And really good point about value add versus value deduction. Really
and you got to make sure that everybody's setting expectations in the beginning, right? Before we place that initial order, I had conversations with this particular brand, preliminary conversations about future consideration for exclusivity, right? I had conversations with them that these listings are terrible, right? Here's what we can do for your brand. Of course, we're not saying it like that, but we've had these conversations, right? And so it's a calculated risk that you're taking. And at the end of the day, it's not like we're still making money, right, on the products. We're just not making the ROI that we want to be making.
Right.
So assessing that conversation first, you don't want to just buy a brand that's unprofitable if there's no future potential for it. So you got to assess that in the beginning.
Exactly. We'll jump into the next question, and then we'll do some outreach strategy. So the old, we're only looking for brick and mortar, and a counter to that, the counter I think is case by case based on the listings, based on the brand presence, based on things like that, based on how industry specific it is. But we kind of hit on it earlier in the live. I don't know if the person who asked that was tuned in then, but there's a difference between industry specific, between brick and mortar, and between Amazon specific. And brands don't realize that. They think that their brick and mortar stores should be the ones to sell on Amazon because they are industry specific. They have a retail presence. But what they fail to understand is that most of the time, those brick and mortar stores have no expertise whatsoever in Amazon. So creating a need and showing them that they need Amazon specific as well, and doing that through the value props that we talk about with the listings, I think is a really good way to kind of get around that and counter that argument. I don't know, Brad, if you have anything else to add on that.
Yeah, it's case by case. If the listing is really bad and they say they're only working with brick and mortar stores, well, we've identified in the listings and the Amazon brand presence that there is value we can provide to the brand. So we're going to poke and prod and refute why they're only working with brick and mortar stores when their brand is crippled on Amazon, right? Yeah. Because it's crippled. It's not visible. The listings are not good. The customer does not have a great shopping experience. I could go on and on about the effects that it has. It affects channels, not just on Amazon, but across all channels, right? And so we'll even say like the present state of the Amazon listings is negatively impacting your distributors and your brick and mortar stores, because it's all a reflection of the brand image on a macro scale.
Yeah.
When customers type in and search for products, they do it either on Amazon, and if they do it on Google, most of the time Amazon comes up first, unless their website is super SEO driven, and that's the number one site that comes up.
I had a brand owner reach out to me that we work with exclusively a couple of weeks ago. We were just talking, and he mentioned that his sales on his website have gone up, and he believes that it is due to us completely optimizing the Amazon presence. So it affects other channels too.
Yeah. So case by case on the brick and mortar, for sure. If their listings are fully optimized and they might have an exclusive, or they look great on Amazon and there's not a whole lot of value that you can add to them, it's probably a pass and move on to the next one, especially if they only want to work with brick and mortar stores.
One of the things I do want to touch on when it comes to this, though, is that it's not only the brick and mortar thing. It's when you're faced with a just flat out, just no, right? Like there's no, and as a newer seller and a newer, newer to being a salesperson, essentially, because that's what you are contacting these brands, is objections like that can seem like you just want to back off because it seems like such a rejection because you're like, we don't have a brick and mortar, right? Like we can't sell this product. And I think kind of as you grow, I mean, it's happened to me for sure, where you just get thicker skin and you're just at a certain point, you really don't care about the objection and you keep reaching out and you have persistence. You just keep, pushing forward. So that's part of it too. When you get objections like that, like we only look for brick and mortar, etc. Just push through the objection.
And I think as you grow, you don't just get thicker skin, but you gain more confidence because you've been there, done that, right? You've swayed brands, you've optimized listings, you've built exclusive agreements, like you've done it. So it's like your pitch and delivery is just a different aura than somebody who's just starting. But that doesn't mean somebody who's just starting can't get there, but
Mhm.
it's about just when you're first starting, getting products in your inventory. Like that should be the number one goal. Is just get wholesale accounts. Let's get them with distributors. Let's get them with brands. If we go straight to the brand and we're faced with brick and mortar straight rejection, ask them about a distributor list. Right? Do you have a list of authorized distributors that you could potentially buy two-step from? And if you can, great. Maybe you can build up a relationship with the distributor. We like smaller to mid-sized distributors, same as if we like smaller to mid-sized brands, because those are the guys you can build a more intimate connection with. There's a particular distributor, it was the first account we ever got, half a mile up the road from the house. It's like, there are distributors in your area that you can reach out to and buy from, and we still have that account today. So it's like, it's all out there. It's just a matter of positioning and, pushing through that rejection and volume, right? You got to be contacting at least 100 companies a week. You're not contacting 100. You got to figure out a way to contact 100 a week.
Right. Why don't we jump into some outreach with that brand and what our strategy would be, and then we can answer any last minute questions, and that'll pretty much wrap it up.
Yeah. So, I can pull that listing up again.
And every pitch to every brand is different, right? Like every initial contact is the same, but every pitch gets, it's like a custom suit, or a custom dress, whatever it is. It's tailored to the person wearing it, and it's tailored. The strategies that we tailor are to the brand's individual needs. And I always talk about this as far as providing value. Value does not mean what you think is valuable, because in some cases you can look at the brand and say, hey, these guys need new pictures, they need this, they need that, and all the brand cares about is the money in their pocket. And so value to them is a transaction. And so really just figuring out what value means to that brand and then custom tailoring your strategy to fit that. And the way that we do that is we ask questions. We ask calibrated questions and get them to talk as much as possible to be able to figure out what their pain points are.
Yeah, that's the first step, is asking questions. But the first thing we say, even before asking questions, is we introduce ourselves, the name of our company, give them a location to show legitimacy, and we say we're interested in opening a wholesale account. And then we ask if we're talking with the right person.
Right.
Very simple.
Across the board for every single initial call that we've had.
Yeah, even if it's one that we probably have a good idea that they're not taking wholesale on Amazon, we'll still oftentimes do that. So, there are times where we will reach out right off the rip and just be like, here's what we're looking to do, right? You look at listings, you get an idea, and you do that from time to time. But majority of the time, it's, let's take the path of least resistance, which oftentimes may or may not be the wholesale account inquiry. And then from there, we will say, we will ask them the question, right? We will ask them, we'll say we're an e-commerce company. We'll tell them what we do, and then we'll say, do you mind if I ask a little bit more about how you guys are working in the e-commerce space? Something along those lines to get the line of the conversation into their court so that they can start opening up with more information.
Exactly. Yeah, I always like to say, how do you, I mean, I think we both say, how can you tell me how you deal with your vendors, your wholesalers, et cetera, just to kind of open up the question more for them.
Right. And so we would continue to go down that rabbit hole of the conversation. And we actually, and another thing that might help beginners is to retrain your line of thinking, right? You are actually in the power position with these brands, especially in this situation, right? Because their listings are terrible, their brand presence is lacking, and you are giving them money, right? So, I mean, at the end of the day, this is different than most sales. Like most sales, you're trying to sell somebody a service or a product. In this, we're selling ourselves to help try to convince them that we're worthy enough to sell their products, right? So, or to buy their products for that matter. So it's a different type of sale, but retrain your line of thinking, right? You are in the power position because one, you're looking to pay them, and two, you have all of this value to give them in growing their brand.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of a backwards business model, but it definitely is, I'd say, equally as difficult. I mean,
yeah,
difficult in a different way, maybe.
Yeah, and if you guys, have questions on this process, like, feel free to drop them in now because this helps, kind of, we get more ideas, from your questions, and we just give away more value. It's like, this is the execution of our business, right? We're literally doing this day to day. And it's an amazing process. Not a lot of Amazon wholesalers are utilizing these processes. Many are that are doing it very successfully. But if you can retrain your line of thinking to work with brands, right, and that's the sustainable model. Like I see people, on social media, Twitter, wherever, talking about how it's hard maybe to scale wholesale, or it's not sustainable. Well, there is nothing more sustainable than a contractual agreement outside of actually being the brand owner yourself. There is nothing more sustainable than a contractual agreement appointing you as the sole reseller of their product line on Amazon. It's literally guaranteed money.
Yeah, other than private label, it's
Being the brand owner, right? That would be the next best thing. But again, even if you're the brand owner, you have to deal with manufacturing, you have to deal with marketing, you have to deal with all this. So it's like, yes, in brand direct wholesale, our margins might not be that of the brand owner, but we are able to scale that rapidly because we can, take brand equity that already exists in all different industries, right? And leverage this vehicle of Amazon to push that brand and capitalize on traction that they have already built. It would be like me going out or you going out and being like, all right, I want to, how much capital would it take for you to start, 80 to 100 different brands, right? Like, when you think about it like that, the sustainability and the opportunity is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a good point to end it on.
So, yeah. And if you guys don't have any other questions, or if you have questions that you think of later on, drop them down here in the comments section. If you're watching on YouTube, drop them on the posts, on Twitter and IG and all the platforms, where we love answering the questions. And I mean, did you have any last minute words?
I was just going to say, if anyone's going to the Fancy Foods show coming up, like I said, connect with us for sure. Send us a DM. We'd love to meet up. And if you're not going to trade shows, you should consider starting, whether you're working with distributors or brands. there's no substitute for meeting, suppliers face to face. And as always, make your calls, because if you're not, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's like cardio. You should be doing it. You're probably not.
Exactly. And it's not just brands, because I think a lot of people sometimes might, because we're so, brands, right? We work with distributors, right? We work with importing companies, right? It's not like we are solely 100% brand direct. It's just the model that we've, chosen to focus on and scale. But at the end of the day, getting out there, going to these trade shows is going to allow you to meet people and meet brands and distributors alike. There's a lot of events coming up, right? There's Fancy Foods, there's ASD, I think there's another one. There's an Amazon industry event, AMZ United, right? So it's not just about networking with potential business, but networking with other Amazon sellers, like-minded people, right, that are going to help you and grow, over the long term. Because let's face it, most Amazon sellers quit within the first 6 months.
Yeah.
So attend events, immerse yourself in the industry, and guarantee you, you stick around for a year, 2 years, you're going to be 2,000 steps ahead of most people.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. And we will be live again next week, next Wednesday. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments on the videos and just let us know.
Thanks, guys. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, and we'll see you next time.